イワイおしゃべりカジュアルインタラクション。
All right, Frank, so what did you bring us?
Okay, so I was just out in Chicago, and I was there for a couple of weeks, and I came across some things. One of which is my favorite. I'll start with the good first.
Yeah.
So the good is every time I see a root beer that I've never tried. Here's the thing: I'm not a huge root beer fan.
Yeah, I don't know many people who are.
I can have one root beer, and I'm like, okay, that's enough root beer.
Yeah.
Maybe even half. But if I see one that I've never tried before, it's something about it. I just have to try it.
Yeah.
So one time I came across this one root beer, and it's called WBC, and it's made by there's a brewery out there called Goose Island.
Oh yeah, I know Goose Island.
So Goose Island makes this root beer, and it is by far my favorite root beer I've ever had, and it's Chicago style, but you can only get it in the Midwest. And I've tried to look, Amazon and all that stuff, and it's fucking astronomical on Amazon. But when I was out in Chicago, I found that they had it at Costco, so I bought fucking 14 cases of it. So I brought that.
You brought it across state lines?
I smuggled it.
Call it Ness, bootlegging.
Hey, what are you gonna do? I tried to go the legal route with it, but I don't think it's illegal to just buy something and move it.
Right.
Anyway, so that's the best. Now, the other side of the spectrum is a drink that I believe is what you would call a Chicago staple.
And that's what's in the shot glass.
And that's what's in the shot glass. This is Jepson's Malört. And Malört is a wormwood derivative.
Oh, the stuff that they put in absinthe?
Yeah, but it's not in that, it's not going to make you, it doesn't make you crazy.
Okay.
It's more, from what I've been told, like a digestive and almost like a Fernet and stuff like that. But it is by far one of the most foul things I have ever tasted, and I feel like it's something that you can't describe until you've had it.
All right, so let's do it.
Yeah. So yeah. Here's to those that wish us well, and all the rest can drink some more Malört. Cheers.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
Oh, fuck you, man.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's like
So here's the thing. Wait. The thing about it, it's not so much the original.
it's like a licorice Listerine.
It's not the original shot that gets you. It's the aftertaste that lingers on your tongue.
My heart's on fire.
It's like if a grapefruit took a shit and the shit tasted like earwax. It's what it would be like in liquid form. Would taste like Malört.
Welcome to Casual Interactions Podcast. We're dying here. Can we drink the root beer now?
I'll crack the root beers. That'll help.
Oh, Jesus.
This is by far my favorite root beer.
Oh my God, thank God. It's delicious. I think anyone would think it would be delicious though after the Malört.
Yeah. Kind of great though, right?
Oh,
that's
God.
good.
I can still feel it on my tonsils.
Oh.
Yeah, it doesn't really go away. It's got that weird sour. Yeah, I know. Maybe we should have done that at the end of this episode. Sorry.
It's okay. So we're going to pick up from last week. We were talking about writing processes.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about what got us. Oh, this is going to be a hard one, man. We talked about what got us into writing, what made us believe that we could do it too and chase our dreams. We didn't actually hear from Shaun a lot last week because we ran over time. So I want to lead off with Shaun right now. I want to talk about writing.
What do you want to use that? I'll use
help
it.
You. No,
That's a weird mix. I mean,
put them in
coffee,
the open there.
Malört.
Yeah, well, it's just, here's the thing. The Malört kind of clings to the back of your tongue.
Yeah, it's like
a
stuck
demon.
in your
I
It doesn't
can't get
go
it
away.
off the back of my tongue.
Yeah, it's still there. The more you drink it, the more you can kind of laugh as other people try it because it doesn't affect you as bad.
I don't know if we should keep drinking it.
No, you don't want to have any more of it.
No.
It's definitely not. That's a one and done.
My stomach is weird now.
Yeah.
It does weird
Everything
things
makes
here.
weird to you.
You know what's
What I just said? Everything makes weird to you.
Makes me. There you go. That's the title
That's
of
the Malört.
That's the title. Of
Everything
this episode.
makes weird to you.
Yeah, I had a giant cup of coffee before. I did a shot of Malört. I'm drinking a root beer.
Oh,
The ride home is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
Now you live, you learn. I feel like I lost a bet.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, it tastes like you lost a bet. It tastes a lot like the writing process, to be honest, because
You bring it back, Frank.
that's the thing.
writing process.
It does because, I don't know about you guys, but at least for me, the artistic process and all of that stuff is I know that it affects me in such a severe way.
Right.
Like when I write a song and I feel like things are going well, and I'm able to express myself in a way that I'm like, oh shit, I fucking nailed that one. Like, oh wow, that's a good
Right.
song, or I wrote a really good line. Where I like sometimes you'll hear stuff in your head, and if you nail it, like if it comes out through your hands the way you heard it in your head, or even better, like you're like, motherfucker, you can ride that high.
Oh, that's a huge high.
For a long time. And sometimes when you're trying to write something, or you're trying to recreate that thing that you heard in your head, or you lost that thing in your head because
Yeah.
you fell asleep, like you heard it in the middle of the night and you didn't fucking write it down, or kind of do like a voice memo thing, you feel like you just drank a bottle of Malört. It's just like, man, like I'm so sour at all times. I fucking snap at people. I'm not happy in any way. I'm a fucking grump.
Well, what it's like, and it happens to me a lot too. It's almost like these single serving doses of being bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think of it like.
Yes.
Wow.
Because I can be manic
Yeah,
and so depressed.
because when you write that thing and you're on this high,
Mm-hmm.
the next day or the next hour, when something happens and like you question that, and it sends you off on this other tangent, and you're the total opposite.
Oh, absolutely.
You're
Yeah.
at this total low.
How about those times when you write something and you're like, oh damn, I cracked it. I'm actually pretty good at this. I can, like
Right.
all the all these things that I wanted to believe about myself are true, and then all of a sudden you listen back and it sucks.
that's tough.
no!
Right.
See,
Oh.
I know what the opposite of it's like. I actually watched Back to the Future this morning
Okay.
because
All right.
it's one of my go-to movies.
Very nice.
I'm burping up Malört. The Eureka moment. I think you want to look what the visual of a Eureka moment is.
Urethra moment.
Different kind of party, Shaun. We'll talk about that in another episode. It's the one where we get our prostates checked because we're old.
Let's do that now.
No. Doc Brown, when the DeLorean goes back to the future, and he gets down, he's looking around, he sees the fire in the street, and he's jumping up and down like, holy shit, I'm not crazy. Holy shit. It's exactly as I imagined it to be. This is it. I did it. That is one of the greatest highs you will ever feel in your life when you have that, whether you're painting, whether you're writing, whether you're drawing, whether you're building a house. Like when you get it, like you'll never get that high off of anything else.
Right. And that's, I think, why we continue to chase it. And that's, one of those things that my dad, I think, tried to instill. Well, first off, my dad was a drummer. My grandfather was a drummer. So like music happened a lot in my world,
Right.
and I would get to go see if I was, if my dad played a place that my mom would let me go to, I would get to see him play. And if he was playing like a bar or something that she felt or deemed to be too seedy, then I would have to get to go see my grandfather play. And he played at this like restaurant, which was almost like a speakeasy actually.
Oh, it's so
it was
cool.
kind of hidden like in the forest. And it was the same crowd.
Forest?
Yeah, it was. I swear to God. Like you had to know it was like a secret turn, and you went back like
That's cool.
2-3 miles into the forest, and there was this fucking little restaurant. I use air quotes, restaurant
Right.
back there. And the same people, the same, older crowd went every fucking weekend. They had their own, they had assigned seating. It was, that was my table. Like that was this table. This is, and so they would play the same songs every weekend or whatever. But I would get to see them. And if I was really good, I get to stay up and I would go to the diner after with the band. That was really awesome.
That's awesome. I mean, your grandpa was a drummer's drummer.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was the kind of, your dad too, like the kind of drums that they play, like people who know them, they know them. Because it's a very special kind of, it's not like, you go to guitars and you hear someone in the drum shop like trying out everything. Like they're to me true drummers.
Also, like true musicians,
cats.
right? Yeah, it was like, yeah, totally, total cats. And that was the thing. Like when I said like I want to be a musician or I want to start a band, like their first thing was like don't. Like their first advice was like don't do that ever.
Yeah.
And I think the second form of advice was like, all right, well, if you are going to do it, then you need to know this.
Yes.
And the thing that you need to know is that there's music, and then there's the music business. And very often one has nothing to do with the other. And I feel like that happens a lot too in the writing. And like the writing is very much the music, but then when you show it to other people, it becomes the music business.
Right.
And what is, say, maybe commercially viable, or what do other people like? What
Right.
what's going to grab someone's attention, and it's almost like you start to soil the process and you soil the art form by ever showing it to someone else.
Yeah.
Because you want so bad to be liked or to have someone
Oh, yeah.
appreciate the thing that you do. And very often, if you're not careful, you can stray from your original path to have someone reaffirm what you're doing is good.
Well, I mean, at our core, everyone wants to be loved.
Mhm.
Everyone wants that affection. Everyone wants to know that the work that they do gets that kind of love and attention back in the right way. And a lot of times it just doesn't, because you said before, you have that moment in your head where your hand does what your head is actually thinking. It's awesome.
Yes.
It is subjective, because what your head is now telling your hand to do something, it does it. You're like, this is great. You show it to someone, they're like, eh. And that's just, it takes the wind completely out of the sails. Shaun, you've been writing comics now for how long?
I don't even know, man.
It's been a while, right?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the time this comes out, Shaun will have published his 4th book, Wizard Beach, for Boom Studios. And it's important because the books that you write, Shaun, are really not your traditional comic stories.
I try not to do what's been done before. I feel like if I did, what's the point?
Mhm.
Right.
I also feel like what you guys were just talking about, doing this for a period of time, you have to get to the point where it's kind of like, well, fuck everyone. Not everyone's gonna like everything you do, right? So for me and the people who are on my team and my artists and my editors and letterers and colorists and everything, as long as we're happy, that's all that matters. If we're
Right.
happy with what we put out, when we were in a band, we put out a record together. Who cares what this one thinks or that one thinks? What matters is if we're happy.
Yeah.
That to me is what drives me and what my goal at the end of the day is.
And being, say, like the sole writer of some stuff, right?
Mhm.
Do you take input from, say, like not co-creators, but like people that are drawing it or inking
Oh,
it or
absolutely.
stuff like that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
But-
there is that collaborative.
Oh, comics are very collaborative. I mean, that's why it's important to work with people who are on the same wavelength as you are. And I feel like every book that I've been on, the team behind it, the artists, the colorists, the editors, I feel like first thing, it's important to get your vision across. And after that, it's important that they see what you're trying to do and they help you get there. They're not trying to control it or trying to change it. They're trying to help you get to where you want to be. I've been
Gotcha.
lucky enough to do that, and I feel like that's something that I've done only creator-owned stuff so far, and I feel like I'm not interested in doing mainstream stuff, because I feel like once you get into mainstream comics, that's when it becomes you have 10 people over you telling you what you can and cannot do, and at that point, is it even really your book anymore?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So-
No, I can see that. I can see there being a lot of red tape and rules that you're going to have to follow, like with an already established character.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
So how is it different, Shaun, say, than being in a band now? We've all been in band together. We've all played in bands
Right.
where you, in a lot of ways, you're right. Your editor, you're collaborating with the editor. The editor's giving you feedback. The editor's like throwing ideas at you, but they're not sitting directly across from you when you're writing what you write. Like in a band, you're in a room with 4 other dudes or how many other people.
Right.
You're looking people dead in the eye. You're coming up with ideas on the spot. You're riffing on it. You're bouncing it off together. Like what you do is, and I admire you so much for it. Like the ability that you have to actually sit in front of a computer and just type things out and write the books the way you do. Like I think that's an amazing gift. But you don't have to do it with anyone else looking at you. You get to do it like as a singular pursuit. Like what's that like?
Well, it's interesting because I look at it as very much like being in a band.
Right.
I come to you with this riff I wrote, and then Frank's like, "Oh, I'm gonna play these chords over it," or
Right.
I'm gonna play this bass line over it, and it's like it's the same thing with comics. I'm gonna come to you with this idea. Sometimes you go with just an inkling of an idea. Sometimes you go with a full blown out story, and then everyone gets together and being in a band is obviously happens a lot faster because you're right here. It's not
Right.
over email and whatnot, but it's the same type of idea. Everyone's collaborating, throwing in, and the goal and what the goal should be is to make what you're doing the best it can be. If people start having egos and I want this, I want that, then you need to get out.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think like that's always been like such a pitfall of like say like a young artist is that like, well, just because I wrote it doesn't mean it has to be in the song or in the story.
Of course.
You know?
Of course.
And,
And that's something
you know, like that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like that's how you end up like, oh, this song's 27 minutes. It's like,
Yeah.
oh well, yeah,
We've done
we gotta
that.
go back to that main riff 16 times.
Like I have this like one shitty preset on this keyboard, and this jungle beat has to be in this song, but it doesn't fit the song at all. It's fine. We're just gonna play it
Yeah,
at
we're
the
just
end.
gonna put it in there.
We're just not
Yeah,
gonna
just
say
shove it
anything
in
about
there.
it. Yeah.
But
Jesus.
that's something that you learn over time in any medium. I feel like you can't be so sentimental about your ideas and creativity because you start off with this, but then that led to something else.
right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So let me ask you this, Shaun. Keeping in this theme, now you've done different comics for different studios.
Right.
You did Art Ops for Vertigo.
Hmm.
You did the Killjoys for Dark Horse, and now you're doing Wizard Beach for Boom.
Right.
Right.
I did Neverboy for Dark Horse.
Did Neverboy for Dark Horse
Yeah.
as well, right?
Yeah.
So is that like, say, working with different bands, like when you were like working with like a new editor or working with like new artists and stuff like that? So it's different
Absolutely.
atmospheres?
Absolutely. It is. And that's why it's important to you want to get to know these people a little bit before you jump into something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like even if it's from, colleagues and people, your friends in the industry and this person's great to work with and blah, blah, blah. You need to have a little kind of background or even
Right.
picking up books that they've done in the past. Like what kind of books have they edited? What kind of stories are they doing? Are they, if I'm going to bring a story like Neverboy about an imaginary friend to a guy who only does war comics, that's not going to work.
Right.
You know?
However, though you did Neverboy with Tyler
Jenkins.
and he did which I revere as one of the best comics to come out in the last 10 years. He did Peter Panzerfaust.
Right. That's interesting too, because then you have an idea where you see someone's art and you're like, maybe he's only done this up to this
Right.
point,
Yeah.
Like if you see a guitar player, look at Ray Torah, for example. He's a thrasher on the guitar, but then he can go back and play this classical kind of stuff,
Yeah.
So you see something in there that you want to maybe get out a little more.
Yeah, you see that there is versatility there, and you
Absolutely.
wanna actually kind of expand upon it. One of the things I think about, say, like writing comics or writing like books and of that nature that I am envious of, yet also I wonder if you are envious of the other side is that like being in a band and playing songs, sometimes you have to recreate those songs every night for like a live show. But in doing that, sometimes those songs can get fleshed out a little bit more, and you can expand upon them. And they change, and you're able to, I guess, still be creative within
Right.
a work of art that you've already made.
Right.
Like, is that something that you miss in the writing process, or is that so awesome that you don't have to like worry about recreating it every night and doing it in front of people live?
I feel like, there's upsides and downsides to both. I feel like a lot of people, you put out a book, you put out a record. I feel like a lot of people feel like they're defined by that one thing.
Right.
Whereas you're not. This is just one thing you did, and then I'm going to go do something else. I feel like a lot of people get caught up, like if something got bad reviews and
Right.
whatnot, it's going to bring them down to a point where they're just miserable, and it's like, oh, you move on and you do something else.
But like, all right, so say like with Neverboy, like if issue 3 of that, like if you were to if you have to like recreate that every night for a month,
Oh,
like
right,
would
right.
it change and evolve?
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
is that something that you maybe miss within this art form?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you're writing, there's not one way to do it. Some people like to outline the whole thing first and then go write it. Some people like to do it as they're writing it, and comics is so precise, 22 pages per issue. You can only fit so many panels on a page.
Right.
So comics benefits from having an outline. However, having a very detailed outline prevents you from that kind of off the hook creativity that you would get if you were just stream of conscious writing.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like where you're going to end up. You know where the story's going. It's like playing jazz in a club.
I like having restrictions and trying to like use those barriers as inspirational tools. Sometimes that can kind of help with the
Right.
process, being like, all right, well, if I'm going to write this song, if I can only do it with 8 notes, like,
Yeah.
like try to try to do something like that, like, and see, like, just see where it takes you,
Yeah.
Maybe you end up breaking that rule or what, but like it gets you to a certain point. And
It's
and that's
challenging.
kind of fun. Yeah.
It's challenging instead of just, verse, chorus, verse, hit the bridge, go home.
Yeah. Just setting up like different exercises for yourself and seeing what comes out.
Well, sometimes that's where the best stuff comes. You write yourself into a corner. How the fuck am I going to get out of it?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's a question. When you're writing a book,
Mhm.
right, and you need, what is it, like a 6
Issue,
issues,
right.
or like story arc. Do you know where you're going to end up at the end of it, or do you sometimes just start writing and be like, I'm just going to see how I can get the fuck out of
No,
this?
you should have an idea. Sometimes that changes during the course of writing it.
Mhm.
But I feel like if you don't have an idea where you're going to end up, you're going to have to go back and do a lot of fucking editing
Yeah.
when you're done. You know what I mean? Some people do that. Usually when you're writing comics for these publishers and stuff, you're on a deadline and you don't have that luxury to just go off and free write for 6 issues and see where you end up and then go back and read the whole thing. I know someone like Stephen King, for example, he comes up with a situation in his head and then just goes off and writes. And then when he's done, he'll go back and edit it.
Right.
So if you saw his first draft, it would look nothing like the finished book. Comics, you don't have that luxury because you're on a timetable. You have to get the script in because the artist has to draw and the colorist
Right.
has to. And if you don't do it, then this one doesn't get paid, that one doesn't get paid. And it's this whole stream of.
Oh God, that's so stressful.
That's got to be so stressful. Now,
Especially for me, because I'm such a fucking asshole when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, like I'll butt fuck a song like, to the last possible second, make
Yeah.
everybody hate me, and then go back to the original fucking version at the last second. Yeah.
hey man, it's your nickel. You know.
Yeah.
So Shaun, how do you feel about, say, most of the stories that you tell are usually about like 6 issues, sometimes just a little bit more. Is that something you prefer to do? Like you're telling short but complete stories in a medium?
I would like to tell even shorter.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, I feel like if you can tell something in like 8 pages,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, like we all came up loving punk rock. We know less is more.
Yeah.
All killer, no filler. And that's one of the things I appreciate most about your style of writing is that I know that I'm going to get a complete story.
yeah.
Start to finish. And some things like, you kind of want more and you kind of are like, oh man, it'd be cool. Hopefully maybe he does something else with it. Maybe he does something more with it. But, some of the best things that I've watched recently were like, oh, it's 1 season. This is
Right.
all it needs to be. We're just doing this and we're going to call it a day. So that's cool. That is something that maybe you want to do eventually, write a whole like 700-page novel or.
And you mean prose? Yeah, I have prose stuff in the works right now. I've had that for a while, and it's interesting because it's very different from comics. Comics is very visual. You're looking. This is what we want you to see.
Right.
When you're writing prose, it's like it's your imagination. These are some words. Take out of it what you get. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm mulling that for a second
Yeah.
to try to think of like to go from the one medium which is so visual and is showing you action without you actually having to kind of spoon feed it to a reader, and then having to then go into like a prose work and having to kind of detail what's happening that's not being said, what's actually happening, and
But
how to
that I
make
feel like that
flow.
I feel like that's what's interesting, and writing a comic script is like writing a screenplay.
Right.
You're very direct, and the shorter you are, the better. You want to get like it's almost like directions, like this is your recipe. Whereas prose, it's like words are fun. You could come up with like really interesting ways to say anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, and get any kind of imagery in your head.
See, I've always thought of a novelist as a writer and half of an artist. And the half of the artist comes in where, like, if you're reading a comic, you tell the artist, I kind of want this, and then they draw it out so you visually get to see it. With a novelist, with you writing prose, you're actually painting the image or giving the broad strokes of that image to the reader, where they're going to flesh it out in their own head. They're going to visualize it in their own head, their own way. So you're kind of half the artist right there. You're kind of getting them to the set, and they're going to paint it themselves, which I think is amazing.
How do you feel about, I guess, like, all right, say, maybe this is a premature question, but to write a novel and have people kind of fill in the blanks of, what characters look like or what things are actually happening, and then finding out about that later. Because I feel like that's a lot like, writing songs where a listener kind of makes up their own interpretation of what that
Right.
song's about and,
Yeah.
what it means to them. And sometimes you're like, oh, that's, like, I love that it lives on in their imaginations, but when they get it so wrong, you're like, oh, no, God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the dad. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Just disappointed. Yeah, I'm so disappointed in your imagination.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's any kind of storytelling. Like I remember Kevin Smith used to hang out at his comic shop in Red Bank, Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash. I remember after seeing Chasing Amy, I was down there with our friend Ian, and I went and Kevin Smith was there, and I was like, and I was young. This is a billion years ago. I was like, what happened at the end of Chasing Amy? And he looks at me, he's like, what do you think happened, man? And I'm like, no, man, I want you to
man.
just fucking tell me.
All right, Steve Albini.
Yeah, like just tell me, man. Like I've tried figuring this out on my own. Like,
Yeah.
talk to me like I'm a little kid because I am. Like, you know,
I feel like if you're that
Hold my hand.
if you're that abstract, you're not really doing your job as a storyteller.
right?
You know, if people are confused by what you're doing and they don't understand what you're doing,
Yeah,
you're not doing your job.
yeah. There is
But
that
what if
side of it as
that's
well.
what you wanted?
Well, that's different. If that's what
Yeah.
you're going for, you know, I mean, I'm all for surreal and abstract stuff. If you're telling if I'm telling a story in a comic, I want you to know what's happening. I want you to give a shit about these people it's happening to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because I was actually sitting next to our friend George on the couch today when he was like, hey, can I reach out to Shaun and tell him, that, you know, that I liked his book? And so our friend George texts you something along the lines of, he's like, your book is like R. Crumb and Mobius
Yeah.
on like a 70s psychedelic fever dream.
Yes, right.
And I saw that when he, because he's a writer as well.
George is great.
And he said it, and I was like, wow, that is like so on the money. Yet I completely understand what's going on in the story, and I don't lose a step reading Wizard Beach because I'm buying into it. Like it's stimulating my eyes, stimulating my brain, and I know what's going on.
Well, here's the thing: the simpler the story, the more room you have to kind of go off and do all
Right.
the weird and abstract stuff. If you have this big, complicated story, it's a lot harder to do that kind of stuff.
I think that translates to music as well.
Absolutely,
You know,
sure.
you start getting too busy, and you know, kind of lose all of the intent and all of the power behind it.
Oh, absolutely. As I say, 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag.
But the bag's a Gucci.
The bag's of Gucci. It's fine. Yeah, that's the equivalent of I just went and bought a bunch of nice guitars and gear, but I don't know how to actually use it.
Yes, yes.
So we're going to wrap up this episode, and we will do a little more next time on writing processes. You guys have any final thoughts before we close it out?
You guys want another shot of that?
No,
No.
God,
No.
Never again. Never again.
Fuck.
All right. That's
Yeah.
nice.
So join us next month for another episode of Casual Interactions, where we will definitely not be drinking Malört again. So for Frank Iero and Shaun Simon, I'm John Hambone McGuire. Until we meet again, hold on to your friends.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners find us. Casual Interactions is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Stephen Blay.